Oh, we're well into the Fringe now. It's what, 4 or 5 days? Oh, I don't know what's even happening. I'm not even up there yet, but other people are, and I've got two lovely guests that are. Hello to Alex Richmond and Torrey Shine. Yay!
Yeah.
Hello.
Hello, how are you? Are you enjoying it so far? Alex, Torrey, anyone? Oh, well, this has gone awkward already. Okay,
well, I was,
Alex,
yeah.
can you tell us a bit about your show, and then I'll ask Torrey. This will probably work.
Absolutely. I've been having a wonderful Fringe so far. I'm doing a show called One Man, 12 Angry Men. It's a very unique interactive show. It's kind of a character showcase, lots of clown elements and stuff like that. But the unique element is that the audience gets to vote which character I perform as on their phone. So there are 12 characters. The audience votes. I come out as that character. We play around a bit. We repeat until we all go home. That's the show.
Exciting. Very exciting. What about you, Torrey? How's your show going? What is it about?
So my show, it's a coming-of-age story, kind of set against the backdrop of the 1980s. It's called Don't Stop Believing, a theatric remix of the 1980s. So I perform it as a one-woman show, and I take lyrics from more than 100 different songs from the 1980s, as well as lots of movie and cultural references, and mash them up, kind of like the style of Moulin Rouge. So all of the dialogue is song lyrics, and all of the songs are compilations of lots of different songs mashed together.
That sounds exciting. How's it going so far?
It's been amazing. It's been so fun to perform it for the audiences, and then also just performing it every day and getting to kind of grow and experiment day by day and see how different things are working.
Right, so it's developing as you're going.
Yeah, I mean, I have the whole show is written, but then it's, you know, you kind of see, oh, wow, people really like that line. And then you can kind of build in different places. Yeah, I'm getting a lot of different audiences here and different demographics. And it's been really, really exciting to, develop. I look forward over the course of the month to kind of experimenting with the show and growing and experimenting different sections.
That's pretty amazing. Right, you, Alex, have you found anything new about your show or yourself while you've been doing it?
Well, I think it's key to constantly be adapting the show when you're at like a Fringe festival like the Edinburgh Fringe. You're doing, especially if you're doing like a month-long run. Like I've been saying quite a bit. I hate the term work in progress so much because in my mind, every show should be a work in progress. Like
Agreed.
you're going to tell me that you're going to come up with a new joke and you're not going to put it in the show because the show's finished. No, you're constantly evolving your show. I think it's sometimes used as a way to kind of discount more of a loose element to the show. But I think having a show have those loose elements is what makes it exciting for audience members to come along. So yeah, I always approach my shows in a similar way as Torrey was speaking about, where I am constantly trying to adapt them and feed into audience response. They're very heavily improvised, the shows that I do. Like I have 12 characters right now, but I might come up with a character tomorrow that I want to try out, and so I'll put that one on the show and take another one out. And I have a lot of bits in between when I'm doing the characters where I just kind of talk to the audience, and I have different things that I kind of want to say to them and stuff. And I'm constantly using the each individual production of the show to kind of understand better what the show is about and why I'm doing it. So it's kind of also evolving thematically across the whole run.
Wow, that sounds exciting. What about you, Torrey? Thematically, has it changed? Even though you've developed it, have you gone, hang on, themes I could use?
I guess I don't know if it's thematically developing as much. Like I feel like the theme is, I guess I'm getting to understand the story better and better. But there's just a lot of, I mean, for me, there's so many song lyrics that didn't make the initial script, that I kind of considered. And there are times when I'm in the middle of performing where I get an idea of like, oh, wait, I could put that line right here, and I'll kind of improvise and add something. Or, if the audience kind of really laughs at something, I'm like, okay, there's actually a little extra section here that I kind of sometimes cut, but they seem to really like that one song. So I'll kind of, embellish and dig in more. So I do find it, and especially, I mean, being an American, because my show is so musically based, there's some songs that were big in both countries, but it's a little bit different. And so there's some references that might not get the laughs here that they would get in America, and then other references that people really get. And so for me, kind of adapting it to an international audience or a European audience has been really interesting as well. Really fun.
That is interesting with the songs. You know, the song Don't Stop Believing, which suddenly became very big in the 2000s. And everyone's like, oh, it was a big thing in the 80s. I'm like, I don't think it is. I was convinced that somebody had inserted it in a sort of, just false history way. And it's like, this wasn't, because it wasn't big here, but it's massive, really. Was it Journey? Yeah. So there are, yeah. So what songs do you have in it at the moment?
Oh God, there's more than 100. There's probably close to 200.
Wow.
But one thing I did before I came here is I had the version I've been doing in the United States, but I did some research to kind of look and see what were hit songs in the UK that never made it to America in the 1980s. That, songs that might have not been on my radar, to try to make it more culturally relevant. Try to, like, I don't know, one example, like The Green Door. I don't know if you remember that one.
Yeah, Shakin' Stevens, yeah.
Like that was a song I hadn't heard in the, but yeah, there's a couple dozen songs that I kind of went through the top hits of the 80s in the UK and would listen to them and listen for interesting, themes and lyrics, and then try to work them into the script to make it, more accessible to an audience over here. And it's been really fun. Whenever those lines hit and people laugh, I'm like, yes, okay, I did it right.
Have you noticed, Alex, that you've adapted it to the audiences you've had? Have the audiences surprised you at any point?
It's a bit tricky. I've been finding with my time slot, I am maybe missing out a bit on the crowd that I'm hoping to get, which is kind of a more alternative comedy watching crowd. And I suspect a lot of them are still in bed at around the middle of the day. They do a lot more kind of late show stuff. So I've been getting more kind of middle-aged people in the shows, and they are not quite sure what they expect. Like, I think they are quite surprised when I start slithering around on the floor, or when I start prancing around, standing on chairs, like doing the kind of stuff that would for the 20-somethings used to seeing alternative comedy and clowning and absurd stuff would just like love. They're like, I don't understand why he isn't just up there telling jokes into a microphone. But I refuse to adapt for them.
No, you shouldn't. And also, that's strange, because you would think that the older people would remember the alternative comedies of the past and be engaged with that. I suppose it depends. Maybe it's just the time of day that people awake people that are sleepy later on are up. Maybe.
Yeah, I mean, I understand that what I do is like quite a niche of a niche kind of thing. But yeah, I would hope that when people come to shows at the Fringe, they expect shows that can be very fringe.
Yeah. Exactly. You want to be challenged and entertained at the same time, or maybe just one or the other.
Yeah, because my shows have a lot of interaction in them. Like, I try to build a relationship with the audience and kind of chat to them a lot and bring them up onto stage and get them to involve themselves in the kind of games that I'm playing and stuff. And it can make it a very difficult show when I've got like 6 people and all of them refuse to like talk to me, refuse to get up on stage and such. It's kind of like, why did you sit down at the chessboard if you just want to watch me play the moves?
Yeah. I mean, you have to have people that are up for it. If it's audience interaction, the audience has to really go with it, don't they?
Yeah. I always, when I'm flying, I'm always starting with like, interactive comedy show. Like, I'm trying to say on the front foot, you're going to be involved in this. So I'm not trying to hide it. I'm not trying to trick anyone.
Yeah. Sorry, I was just trying the layout, because there was a weird icon appeared on Torrey's face that I was like, is that on the real thing? It's not. So I put it back to normal. About you, Torrey, has the audience been engaged with what you've got to give them?
It varies a little bit. So my show is also during the daytime. It's at 2:15 or 14:15 if we're talking Fringe clock hours. It's varied. There's definitely been a lot of audiences that have been vocal, and responsive. And that's, as a performer, that's a lot of fun, when they're giving back to you and they're laughing, they're nodding. But I've also had a few experiences where, they kind of sit there very stone face, the whole time. And but what's funny is after the show, those people will come up to me and say like, oh, I really loved it. This line was really funny. That was really funny. I think part of it is kind of being earlier in the day, in the middle of the day. People are tired. They're kind of still waking up. They haven't, haven't been drinking. It's like they might be at like some of the later shows. It can be hard as a performer to keep your energy up, and Alex, I empathize because I don't have interaction elements, right, where I depend on the audience, but I definitely build off their energy, right? If they're giving me response, it makes the show so much better. But I don't, I can imagine if you're asking them like, all right, come up on stage and do this or say this, when they're reluctant, that's really hard as a performer.
Yeah.
But the reactions have been good, but there's definitely moments, where people, they're not giving you a lot visually or verbally, but it doesn't mean it's not hitting. It doesn't mean they're not enjoying it. So I'd always just try to remind myself, like, keep the energy up, perform it, for the one person who loves it. And then actually a lot of them come up afterward and give really great feedback. Oh.
Yeah, there is a strange alchemy with audiences, and you can't, sometimes you hit it and you don't know why, and sometimes you don't. But that also, yeah, you're right about the reactions. I've had audiences that I know have been enjoying it because you can see the look on your face when you're looking at it, but then you filmed it at the back, and because they're making no noise. And you're like, it was awful, it was terrible, but you're like, but they're looking at me with such loving eyes. You can't see that on a camera though, in the back of their heads. It is difficult to, because you have to feed off them like a vampire in a way.
I always say if they're not laughing, they're listening, and that's also fine.
Exactly. But a lot of people are like, oh, I want the big laughs. It's like, I'm not used to if people laugh and out loud, I'm shocked usually because I don't get that sort of reaction, which is really what people are wanting out of comedy. But so are you both of yours comedy and music, or a bit of drama in there?
Mine is very dramatic, actually. It is, but there's a lot of funny moments. Actually, I had trouble trying to figure out how to classify it. I was worried if I call it a comedy, then people will come and they won't be ready for the dramatic parts, right? It's it's a coming of age story. It's a story of sort of a woman through her life, and there's ups and downs, and there are some heavy moments in there. Even in those moments, there's kind of moments of comedy and moments of laughter. But I would call it a dramatic comedy, or maybe. But it's a mix. I mean, it's musical, but it's all a cappella. So I sing all of the songs are mashed together, but it's like half spoken, half sung, but all of it with no instrumental.
Ah, that's interesting. So it's the theatrical experience.
Yes, very much.
And Alex, I expect if it's improvised, then it's going to be all of the things at certain points. Have you found that different aspects of it have come out differently in different nights?
Well, when I say improvised, it's like the most accurate thing is like it's clowning. So it differs though. Each character, either I have like a kind of relatively formulated or written sketch that I'm performing out with some room to improvise, or I have a very basic idea of the character and I just come out and kind of react to what the audience is giving me. So give them kind of prompts and see what they find funny, and then do that again, and do they still find that funny, and I'll do it again. If they don't find that funny anymore, so I'll do something else, that kind of thing. So like it's not the same as like improv games or like doing improv scenes in as much. It's just like using skills of improv, just to be kind of open and kind of top of mind as a performer. But yeah, it's pretty much entirely comedy. I mean, like I said, I have like little things that I say while I'm getting changed into each character that is not explicitly comedic. It's just kind of a bit more, I wouldn't necessarily say dramatic, just vulnerable. I just am kind of talking to the audience about my experience as a performer and kind of questioning the reasons why I perform in that particular way. And it's one of those things where I'm like constantly worried about teetering over the line into something being self-indulgent, but at the same time, I want to provide some level of vulnerability to make it feel like a more like authentic experience beyond just a pure kind of gag and comedy vehicle.
Yeah, it's finding that balance, really. So both of you, it's your first Torrey in Edinburgh experience, isn't it? Are you finding anything that you weren't expecting that's surprised you?
I'm not sure. I've just been taking it in. I think one thing that's been really cool is, every day I recognize more and more people people said, people would talk about how big it is, and it's massive. They also, I live in New York City, so I'm used to being in places where there's lots of people everywhere. You walk through Times Square, that's in holiday season, that's sort of like the Royal Mile, during the Fringe. But one thing that's been really cool is, even though it's big, I feel like I've been meeting people and then I see them again and again, and every day as I walk down the street, I recognize more faces. And that's, I guess I thought it might be a little more anonymous than that. And that's been a really pleasant surprise that somebody will be in my audience and then I see them somewhere else, or, that the familiarity. And I'm really excited because I know that's going to keep building over the month, because there's so many artists that are here for the whole residency.
Well, that is the thing. I mean, it's not a gigantic city, it's concentrated. There's a lot of people there in August, but they tend to be there for more than a day generally, and so you can see them around. Alex, this isn't your first though, is it? How many have you done?
So this is my second Edinburgh Fringe, but I've done a lot of fringes back in Australia. Done the Sydney, Adelaide Fringe, and Melbourne Fringe, and stuff like that quite a few times with different shows. But this is my second Edinburgh Fringe. I find I definitely had a moment when I first got here the first day. It's very overwhelming. I think one of the most overwhelming elements is the Fringe really, and this isn't the most positive thing, but I feel like it really demonstrated to me how small I am. Like it really creates this feeling of you being a very small fish in a very big pond as you're wandering past like huge posters for, big artists. Some people that I know now from London, see they're performing at these big venues and things like that. And it kind of just reminds you a bit too much as you wander around on that first day of the huge divide that can be created at the moment, based entirely on like class and resources and money, and how someone can really have a completely different fringe just based on the fact that they were able to put £5,000 into a marketing budget over someone who wasn't.
It's not exactly the most democratic thing. I know that I used to wander around and see the big posters, the poster people, and then I get very excited if I saw the poster people in real life, because you just see everyone around. But there was definitely a feeling of them and us, the big poster people that had paid thousands of pounds to be here, and then you're like, I can't even afford my breakfast today. And I hadn't even spent that much money. Although, actually, a lot of the poster people have spent all the money they own and then all the money they've ever had, and then they can't afford breakfast either. So probably in the end, you're all on the same level. You're like, no audience today.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Maybe it's a bit better for them because they are getting some like quite high audience turnout, but the system is bleeding us all dry.
That's for me. When I was decided to come here, I was debating. There's so many different models, right? There's some venues, a lot of the original venues or official venues. I don't know what you would call them. Sorry, my light keeps going out. I'm not sure why. Well, you can see me either way.
Big five, people say. The big five, the big paid that you're spending 20,000, 30,000 for a venue. Yeah.
Well, yeah, a lot of the venues require artists to prepay sort of a guarantee. And I got offers from a number of theaters. But a lot of them would require me to sort of put money up front out of pocket. And there was one that kind of had nothing out of pocket and a 50-50 split, but you're still selling tickets. And eventually I decided, so Alex, just like you, I'm doing mine through the PBH Free Fringe, which I decided to do because I thought, it's like I'm coming. I'd rather have a fuller room, right? Be able to have people come and then have it be donation based, right? If you believe in your show, I'd rather fill the room and have that experience of performing for people and being able to grow as an artist like that. And if you believe in your show, then, being able to get tips from those people. And it's worked out really well. I've had pretty good audiences and they've been tipping, well. And I feel like that's made it so much more accessible. We're coming out without, it was still a, financial commitment to pay for the housing and the airfare. Yeah. But having less financial risk for me made it more accessible and made me more willing to come. And I really think the Free Fringe is just such an incredible innovation, and it's been a delight to be able to be a part of that.
It's still a gamble though, because it does depend. We were talking about venues, and I think Alex was with the Free Fringe last year. The venues, if the pop-up venues can be good, but it's such a gamble for everybody. So yeah. It's a risk. You don't always get what you. I think, you know, Omni Centre last year, which I think you were in, some people made it work for them, but there's an awful lot of compromise with some venues. Are you happy with the venue you've got this year, where you are?
Yeah, I'm pretty happy with it. Like location wise, I think is key. It's a much better location. It's a much smaller room, which is kind of on me. Like I requested the smaller room without realizing how small it would be and how difficult that would make performing my show, because of the fact that like it's hard for me to weave around the audience in this small space that I'm in. And as well as that, I have to take a lot of props onto stage with me because I have 12 potential characters and I don't know which characters are going to be done each show. Only about 3 of them get done each show. I don't know which ones are going to be. So I have to have everything set, ready to go. So it's just been about, as you said, being innovative with the venue that you've got. Like today, I'm about to go and pick up a hat stand that I had purchased from IKEA. So now I'm going to have a hat stand that I can hang each individual bag of my costumes on, so that it's kind of built vertically up as opposed to horizontally. So I'm hoping that that will like resolve the spacing issues I've got. But that's the fun of Fringe, is like coming up with these new things. Like a key part of my show is the fact that I have to change into each character in front of the audience. Like I have to like take off my clothes, put on new costumes and stuff. And that came about because last year I didn't have a backstage at the Omni Centre. There was no backstage, there was no side stage, nothing like that. And so I just made it into a joke, a part of the show, that like they would have to like close their eyes if I told them to, if I was getting changed and things like that. And now it's an integral part of the show that I am on stage kind of being vulnerable, taking off clothes, putting them on, while kind of talking about my vulnerabilities as an artist. So it's fun to be able to find ways to fix those challenges and then incorporate them into the show.
That's good. I'm glad something good came out of this. Torrey, I think you've stood in for a couple of people, because there's always, you know, people not available, different, you know, spots available. So you filled in for a couple of spots, I believe.
I did, yeah. So the venue that I'm performing in is Slow Progress Records and Cafe. It's on Blackfriars Street.
Oh yeah.
It's a new venue this year for the Fringe. They just opened, I think in December or November. But it's this little cafe record shop, and they have a room attached to it. And it's been really fantastic. Right? That venue's been great. It's family owned. Connie and Andy, the couple that own it, they've got a little baby boy. Just really sweet, really, really friendly vibe. And then I did a couple extra bonus sets at the Voodoo Lounge yesterday and the day before.
Wow.
And for me, it was really, I'm so used, like my history as a performer is mostly in poetry and storytelling. So I'm used to being behind a mic, kind of. Andy, or Alex, I'm sorry. You were joking earlier, people are expecting you to be behind a microphone. And so much of my earlier performing experience was, you know, at a mic. And being in these rooms, I, you know, in this piece, I move around a lot. And so it's been interesting for me to experiment, you know, and just learn different choreography and using the space. And at Slow Progress Records, I've gotten comfy in that space, you know, kind of, I go to that wall, I go into this corner, I point to that door, there's a window. And then doing it in a totally different venue where it's a very long, narrow stage with a couch behind it. And it was just really fun I did it one day, and it was, you know, the first time I saw the room was 10 minutes before my show. And I kind of thought, okay, here's how I'll do these different pieces. And then I got to do it again, actually in that same venue the day after. And it was just really fun to kind of adapt into a new space and kind of see how the physicality will move. And like Alex was saying, it's like sometimes you have a different limitation, but then you stumble into a new discovery that, you know, you can keep using even when you're not forced to do it.
And even when you've paid loads of money for a venue, the way that Edinburgh's set up, some of them aren't ideal. I mean, some of them have sound bleed that you weren't expecting. I know I had caves. I went to somebody else's venue once. There was a caves venue, and you could hear the sound bleed from a different venue that was a completely different organization because of the way that they were. It was really difficult to hear what was going on. So that the performer, they could have got really frustrated, but they had to just work with work with what they had. It's you never know what you're going to get in Edinburgh. Is the thing.
Yeah, I did a compilation show the other day. It was all sort of dark feminist stories and comedy. I think it's called Black Widow.
Mm-hmm.
But it was, that the content was sort of dark comedy, and there was karaoke in the room next door, and you could hear the karaoke bleeding through the walls. So
Yeah.
it's kind of a sound bleed, and also a very different kind of vibe, kind of bleeding through, and that you just have to run with it.
Yeah. No, I think there was the Green Room venue, which is I think the Mash House now. I was helping somebody with a storytelling show once, and it was quite quiet, so we were just talking to the audience and stuff. But there was a theatre piece next door that had a very loud bit, and you could sort of time when it came, so you could just be like, so by the end of it, you're like, yep, predict that, know when that's going to come, because yeah, you never know though. You have to just adapt. So Alex, have you got any spots anywhere else apart from where you are? Are you doing other people's shows? Compilation shows always good.
Yeah. As much as I can. It's a bit trickier because I try when I am doing spots to do like a character or one of my alternative things, and that doesn't always gel well with the audience at the particular spot. Like I like to think that I'm pretty good at winning a crowd over, even with the kind of weirder stuff, but sometimes they can be just very resistant to just like you just need to be playful. I don't know. Audiences can sometimes be very resistant to the idea of being playful. They kind of like cross their arms. They're like, "Come on, make me laugh, make me laugh," and they're not willing to like just find a laugh together. But in terms of the spots that I've been doing that I really like, I love doing ACMS, the Alternative Comedy Memorial Society. I did that a few nights ago. That was really good. Do Not Resuscitate is a show that my friends are performing. It's like a compilation show at the Voodoo Rooms. I did one of those the other night, and they've got one more, I think, to go on the 22nd. Yeah. What are some other ones that I've done? Those are the main. There's definitely another one that I've booked for, but I cannot remember right now. I mean, I'd love to get onto something like Stamptown, but anyway, just those big alt comedy nights that start at midnight and go until 3 a.m. I recommend if you're looking for a really wild time.
Well, that's good though, because you're doing a daytime show, you get the experience of the nighttime, the rowdiness. Yeah. It's difficult though, because you get that experience, but you also maybe, if you're expecting that in your own show, maybe a bit of regret possibly. Do you?
Yeah, it's also exhausting because I have to get up early to kind of get into town to set my show up. Yeah. And then still stay out late. Whereas my friends who've got like late shows, they at least just sleep in. I am exhausted.
Yeah. Have you found the work-life balance in Edinburgh working out for you, Torrey? Are you getting enough sleep, eating enough, or any?
Yeah, it's also, so my show is also early in the day, and and you have to get up early to kind of get dressed, get ready, and then also flyer and ideally promote before your show. And I haven't been able to do a lot of late nights, but I have sort of gone into like a 2 sleeps per day mode, where I kind of take a nap in the late afternoon, early evening, so I can kind of do something else fun at night and then sleep again. That's
that is a good plan, yeah.
A few days.
Because you can be like daytime people and nighttime people if you've got shows at certain times. Like we're up in the daytime, and a lot of other people have been sleeping since 7 o'clock in the morning because they've been up all night doing their shows and partying. Yeah. So I think it's important to at least one day do an all-nighter, but it is difficult if you've got a show back in the morning. You got any days off planned in?
I'm taking Wednesdays off.
Oh, that's good. What about you,
so
Alex?
I did actually this week on.
No days off.
No days off.
I get a day off if nobody turns up to my show and I have to cancel it. That's the only circumstance.
No. It's a regretful day off, but maybe a bit of a relief sometimes if nobody turns up. Because there's been a lot of things.
Yes.
A lot of things in the news where one person turns up and people have got quite a lot of PR out of it. But nobody talks about the days when nobody turns up. And I think everybody has at least one of those. and it is slightly a relief sometimes that you've still got it in the books or whatever. It still looks like it's to everyone else. That's more of a success than one person turning up because there's nobody there to contradict you.
Yeah, look, I think I've had before last year. Thankfully, it hasn't happened this year, but I had last year. I think one show early on my run, it might have even been two, where two people turned up, and I was like, I explained to them, I was like, the show is very interactive. If you are into that, we'll give this a go, but I will be relying on you a lot. You know, I also completely understand if that's not for you and you want to head out. And they were like, yeah, let's do it. And they had the best time. It was such a fun show, and like they went away saying it was one of their highlights of the Fringe, and then they came back a few days later bringing more friends to see the show again, which was very nice, very gratifying. So yeah, I'm a bit cynical about the PR about one audience member turning up. There are much worse things that can happen to a performer, I think.
Exactly. And one audience member is an audience member. Somebody's come to see your show. I never cancel a show if anybody turned up. I've done them when there's nobody there, though, so I'm like going to carry on anyway.
Right.
Somebody might turn up, but by the end, you don't even know. It's an organic experience. Have you had to cancel any yet, Torrey? Even maybe don't tell us that might be. No, exactly. No, never ever cancel the show.
Well, it's funny. The first day, I had nearly a full room, which was just like a really delightful surprise. I had no idea what to expect. So that my first show was on a Saturday, and the room was almost full. And then the following day, there were 3 people, and I was like, okay. And I thought, that I was like, and then Monday it was almost not quite full, but a really good capacity again. So my slowest day was 3 people. I haven't had an empty room yet. I don't, who knows? We're only a few days into the festival, but so far the audiences have been pretty good, but it's also unpredictable.
It's completely unpredictable. Now, what you get a full show and you go, now I've cracked it, and then there's hardly anybody when you've done more work to try and get people in. This whole thing about flyering, it's like the more you fly, it doesn't necessarily mean the more you get in. It's just like, why? How are people even here sometimes? It's so unpredictable. You just have to do the best you can, really. What about flyering? Have you found flyering a difficult thing? Are you doing flyering for your own shows, the both of you?
Well, I've been flyering because through PBH they produced the wee blue book. There's like a book with all of the shows. Yeah. And I did make flyers for my own show as well. And it's funny, I tried. So at first I kind of looked up a lot of shows that were similar and tried to flyer outside of those shows when they were getting out. Things that I thought had overlapping themes. Yeah. It's been hard because a lot of those shows I would go to and there wouldn't be very many people coming out. I felt like I was spending a lot of time getting there and then not people. But I'm still experimenting with that. But my venue, it's pretty close to the Royal Mile, so I feel like the best success I've had is, and my target demographic would be people who kind of came of age in the 1980s, which is an older crowd. Yeah. So in the morning on the Royal Mile, that's kind of where my audience would be. Yeah. That's actually worked out pretty well.
Yeah, well, that's good. What about you? Have you found a flyering secret of your success, or are you still trying to crack it, Alex? Yeah.
I don't love flyering. I'm very socially anxious, and I struggle a lot with promoting my own work. I also feel like flyering is a bit of a defunct advertising method. I don't know. I feel like it creates a lot of waste. Yeah. And it's just kind of adding to the hierarchy of the Fringe. When you see I have a friend of mine who, wanted to make a bit of money. So she's like, oh, I'll go do some flying for some shows. And, one of the shows, she was able to personally meet the person who was like doing the show. They were 8 months pregnant, which is why they couldn't fly themselves. And so it's like, that absolutely makes sense why you'd need a flyer for something like that. One of the other shows, she didn't meet the people that were performing in the show. She just met the producer and the media relations person. And they were like, just go up and ask them, do you ever worry about your biological clock ticking? And she was like, I don't want to go up and ask people that. That's such an invasive question. Yeah. And I think flyering at its core originally, if it was just like the artist going out there, doing their best to get on the street and sell their show. There's something very noble in that, but I think that it's transformed into just another part of the industry where, you know, people with money are paying flyers who barely care and are just kind of like doing the work for money, which I don't judge the flyers for that. Like, if you're getting paid like barely more than like minimum wage just to like pass pieces of paper to someone, I completely understand why you'd be doing it and just kind of like clocking out, you know, like we all do that. But yeah, I think it'd be nice if we found better ways to connect. And I think because now it's been invaded by this kind of like hierarchical system, right? Where it's so rare to get like artists actually flying for their shows, audiences are turned off to it as well. You know, they know that they're just being gifted a flyer from someone who doesn't really have a connection to the show, so they're much less likely to listen to a person who's actually flying for themselves. But there are still ways to cut through. There are still ways
it's difficult. I know some people that have got paid flyers, but they are insistent that the flyers come and see their shows and are engaged, because that's important. I know they're not, you know, you're not paying a huge amount to the flyers, but you know, they still need to know what's going on to because otherwise.
So I've been doing my own promotion.
Yeah.
But whenever I flyer, I'm in costume. Like I'm in costume, in character. I remember reading online before I got here, people kind of said, like, right before your show, right near the venue, you know, you just kind of ask people, like, are you looking for a show?
Yeah.
And you'll get people in like that. And that sounds so wild. But that's actually been very successful. Like, I feel like a lot of people I've met, the program is just so massive, right? There's so many shows, and, you know, people might have some plans, but often they're just kind of wandering, you know, open to something. So it puts a lot of pressure because it's right before the show. I want to rest my voice. I want to stretch. Yeah. But you really, you know, if you can be out there on the street with the flyers, you know, saying, are you looking for a show? And I think it helps. Like, you know, I have the flyer. I'm dressed just like the person on the flyer. I can tell them about the show. And for me, it's been successful, but it definitely does put a lot of burden on you as a performer. You know,
especially
I run right in, do my sound check, and start the show.
You've got a lot to do. If it's just you doing everything, you're doing your own tech and you're doing everything, then, you know, it's just doing the flyering beforehand can be a little bit of a mind thing. I was going to say something I don't want to say at this time in the morning, but it's just too much. But you need to do it because people are like, oh, you're on the flyer, that's you. It's like, yeah, but then you know, doesn't always help you. They're just like, yeah, and it's disheartening when you've given somebody a flyer and then you can see it on the street, just it's there. You've contributed to the litter and they weren't interested at all, and people are stomping on your face. There's a lot of, like, there's moments where, you know, you're interacting with someone on the street, or maybe it's an audience member that's not responding, but you kind of have these moments where it doesn't click. And I was just trying to remind myself, like, restart. Or if somebody doesn't take a flyer, I'll take it and put it at the bottom of the stack, and then offer the next person a fresh one, right? You know, I feel like if people see somebody saying no to a flyer, it makes that flyer look unwanted. You know, it's like, all right, you know, we'll try that one again later. They're all the same, but but just
that's nice. I like
reminding myself, like, refresh.
It's difficult, you've got to have psychologically, you've got to have a motivation for this. I know I was flyering a couple of years ago, and it's just there's so many famous people, like you said, people on the streets. And I offered somebody a flyer, and then I was like, oh, it's Ian Hislop. So I was like, oh, hello, Ian Hislop off the television. Do you want a flyer? And he said no. And it was like, okay, well, that was my own fault, really. But I didn't know it was him. And because people are passing, you're like, fly. Oh, it's embarrassing sometimes flyering. So I hope people come into both your shows. Have you got both of them coming up? You've both got them today? So what time is yours, Torrey, and what time is yours, Alex? Torrey,
you go first.
Go first, yeah.
And mine's at 2:15. I'm sorry, I didn't hear you properly. 2:15.
Oh, brilliant, that's fine. And Alex, what time is yours?
2:25.
Okay, so probably can't do them both on the same day, but you're both there for the rest of the Fringe.
Yes.
Yeah, so, you know, catch them both, go and find them, look at them. Are you both in the big book, the big expensive book, the big Fringe?
I'm not in the book, but I'm in the digital program.
PBH one. Are you in the book, the big book?
Yeah, I'm in the big one this year.
Ah, so you can find you in the big book, and you can find you in the lovely wee little blue book. This is nice little thing. I like the blue book. Anyway, so we'll find you both. Yeah. Yes, look at it. Oh, it's so shiny. I haven't seen it this year because I haven't been up yet. I'm gonna see it in person if they're still left on the 13th. Right. So, oh, and there's your flyer. Brilliant. So amazing. Oh yeah, both sides. Amazing luck with both your shows. I hope that goes really well. And yeah, have a lovely rest of the day and rest well. Just make sure you rest well after your show. All right. Bye-bye.
Thank you very much. Bye.
Thank you so much. Bye. Enjoy your Fringe.